Much of collage is about images, but I want to flip that a little, and today let's talk about text. Obviously, words convey a whole lot of meaning, but they can also be texture. They can be background and noise. They don't always have to provide word-for-word value. I'm going to show you 3 collages that I made that utilize text in 3 different ways. So if that sounds like fun to you, then let's get started. This first collage is all about creating a text-based background. So what I'm doing first is going through this magazine from Vanity Fair that has lots of text and really interesting headlines that I think will end up being really textured and interesting on the background. I think that ripping these pieces is the best way to go about creating this sort of background. It gives a more lived-in live edge, and I think because it feels less purposeful, it will help to create a sense that the background is not important. Layering all of these pieces in is sort of a fun puzzle. You want to get lots of coverage, but you also don't want to make it too readable. One thing that I started doing was pulling different colored sheets of paper in. I have some really old yellowed paper from Better Homes and Gardens, and it's very different from the more modern magazine from Vanity Fair that I was originally using. I wasn't positive if this would work out, but the all straight black and white was just looking boring to me, so I thought that maybe this more yellowed paper would help give it a little bit more dynamism. Is that a word? I then decided to use this image of Audrey Hepburn from the cover. You can see I left the barcode in. I wasn't really sure what to do with it. I didn't want to cut into her body anymore. So I don't know. I kind of thought maybe it would blend in with the background once it was pasted down. Audrey Hepburn is an absolute icon, and not because of her Hollywood career. I watched a documentary about her, and I learned that she grew up during World War II in the Netherlands. She suffered from malnutrition, and though she wanted to be a dancer, a lot of those early childhood issues that she had with getting access to food meant that she wasn't really able to pursue dance the way that she wanted. Obviously, she was a driven woman and became a Hollywood star, but I think the thing that's most interesting about Audrey Hepburn is that later in life, she became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, and she traveled extensively to raise awareness for children in need. And I really believe that her early childhood was a huge part of why she did that in her later years. I did feel like this passion flower that I put behind her was a little too blocky and covered up too much of the text, so I attempted to remove some of the image with these organic shapes to help allow the text to show through a bit more. I also included bits of the image sort of leading off the page around her. Those 2 stripes on the side are from the original passion flower image. And then I decided to include some more of the organic shapes from that image that I cut out below her arm to help draw the eye downward. Something that Audrey Hepburn was quoted as saying was, As you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands. One is for helping yourself, the other is for helping others. I didn't feel that the collage was quite done, so I went through this book of birds and I found this one of a bird sort of perching on a branch. I thought it would be nice to layer this on top of the image, and I couldn't tell you exactly why I felt like the bird was the best choice for this. I suppose that there's something about birds that I find both incredibly strong and fragile, and something about Audrey Hepburn just sort of makes me think of this sort of duality. Being small and fragile doesn't mean that you're not strong, and being strong doesn't mean that you don't have a soft side. I did end up covering some of those organic shapes that I laid down earlier, and now that I'm watching this playback, I'm a little worried that one of them looks kind of like poop coming out of the bird's butt. Huh. Funny. I might have to go and change that. If I could give you any tips here, it would be don't overthink the text too much. Think of it more like stripes or polka dots, like it's just a pattern. But if you're worried at all that people might start trying to read the words and get meaning from them, something that I was doing was flipping the words upside down and sideways at various intervals just to kind of break it up and make sure that if you did start to read any of it, it wasn't like, straight across the whole time. Does that make sense? Something that you might consider in this sort of collage is layering in transparencies over the top of your text. This can help push the text into the background even more. So if you're worried that people are going to be reading it and flipping the text sideways and upside down is really not quite doing it for you, transparencies would help. This collage started with diamonds. I saw this ad for Tiffany's from, again, that Vanity Fair magazine. And I just really liked the diamonds. I didn't really want to mess around with the actual, the rings and all of that, so I cut them out. Maybe the rings will be useful later, I'm not really sure. So just in case, I cut them out with an X-Acto knife. And then I started looking through this book of astronomy. I had the song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds sort of playing in my head as I was looking, and that was probably a major reason why I chose this background. And I really love the way that the yellow of the diamond is playing with the dark sort of greens and yellows of this background. This book was sewn in, so it was a little harder for me to cut out, but I was trying to be careful. I have too many times gotten annoyed and ripped too hard, and then I've torn my background and had to fix it later. Or cut off big chunks that I wasn't planning on cutting. I wasn't really sure where this was going to go at first, so I just started looking through some piles of paper that I have ripped out of magazines and books in the past. And I eventually found this page from a book of graphic design that I had in college. And so it's got some really cool stuff. but I do struggle sometimes with knowing exactly how to use these pieces. I kind of thought this worked really well to have him sort of rising up from behind the horizon and using the observatory to press his hand against. So I tested it out to see if I kind of liked the concept and wanted to make sure that the pieces were sized appropriately. And then I started cutting, and I desperately need to get a new X-Acto knife blade. What's funny is I did get new blades, but they're not the right size for this particular X-Acto knife. So, that's annoying, isn't it? But now I don't want to go back and spend more money, so I've just been using this terrible blade. I slipped him in, and I did like the way that it was looking, so I decided to go ahead and glue his torso down. And then, of course, we need some words. Something that shows to me a struggle particularly toward the carrot at the end of the stick, the diamond in the sky, the thing that you think will make your life complete. And it's something that I think in this highly capitalistic society, we're often fed ads that tell us, I'm going to give you that thing and it's going to make you happy. So I liked this quote that I saw in the magazine about capitalism, and I thought it would work really well with this idea that I have kind of forming in this collage. So I cut the words out and I placed them on the page, and I hated this. But I wanted to keep using the words, so I needed to figure out how to best place them. It's always a risk to do this, but I thought it was worth it since I really didn't like the way that they were laid out before. So I cut all of the words out so that they would be individual, and then I placed them in a more pleasing spot, in my opinion. Something that you learn in graphic design is that a Z shape helps to lead and draw the eye. So in this case, I have the words set off to the left because the man is on the right and the diamond is sort of centered. So your eye will travel from diamond to words to man.
When using text this way, I recommend keeping it short. A paragraph might have lots of meaning tied up in it, but it definitely doesn't have as much visual impact as big letters. I try to think of it like creating a headline for the piece, or maybe giving it a title.
My final collage uses text blocks again, but this time the text itself is a character. It took me a while to land on this idea. I began with my subject, the bride, who I cut out from one of my vintage magazines. I'm not sure why I chose her, but once I had her, I just really wanted to find a way to use her. At first I wanted to keep this veil, but Honestly, the more I thought about it, the way that it was sort of framing her, I wasn't sure how it would really work with other pieces. So I figured I would just eliminate that issue by removing it. I think that the bride vibe still comes across, especially to modern viewers, because I don't know that a veil is that common any longer. Eventually, I stumbled on an article that had a really salacious headline. Or technically, I guess this was a pull quote. It was intriguing and mysterious. And from then on, I wanted to make a collage that had some unsolved murder vibes. I love a true crime documentary, so this one was really more of a fun exercise than anything else. So, because it was really more of an experiment, I decided to pull out my sketchbook and I began arranging the pieces. To increase the mystery factor, I made sure to call out words that jumped out to me. I circled and annotated, I starred certain things, and underlined various words and phrases, hoping that would give this a more obsessed detective vibe. I think that this adds sort of this narrative tension. You might question who circled the words and why. Is there a hidden message somewhere? Even if it's not meaningful, it feels meaningful because of how the words are marked. I think that this approach sort of overlaps with the idea of found poetry, where artists might isolate words from a page to create new meaning. It also ties into the more junk journal aesthetic, so this sort of like messy, handmade, slightly chaotic but fun page creation. I think the thing about it is that it doesn't really mean anything and it's just meant to be some silly fun. But I do think it could be a fun exercise for other people who are just looking for a way to add interest to their sketchbook, make a page that really relies on text as its own character, but maybe not taking it too seriously.
For this style of detective-y collage, I realized that I kind of lucked out with my text block and its sort of mystery vibe. So if you can't find any text blocks that meet your needs, then I would recommend maybe writing your own mystery story and printing that out, or finding one online and doing the same. You could also try handwriting some notes and pasting those in. I think that those are options that would honestly help make the collage feel even more personal to you, and therefore a better fit for your junk journal anyway. So those are the 3 different ways that I use text in my collages: as background, as a clarifying element to the meaning of the collage, and then as a weird, scribbly detective Pepe Sylvia sort of thing that makes the text a part of the story. Okay, I think that's it. If you had a good time and you want to hang out with me a little longer in the studio today, then check this video out. Or if you're looking to learn a little bit more about how I make collages, then check this video out. Okay, bye. See ya. Bye. Bye.